everyone, welcome back to Dance is Us, a series of podcasts produced and presented by Ätawan, Malta's national dance company during the COVID-19 crisis. The letters making up of the name Ätawan are the starting point for the 9 themes to be presented over 9 weeks. The program aims to highlight the myriad ways dance features in our lives and is an opportunity to draw in the opinions, ideas, and perspectives of the many voices in our cultural ecology. We'll be talking to dancers and choreographers, as well as artists working in other disciplines. Today, we're talking to Jorge, Crecis, as part of our nurture theme, in which we explore the ways nurture shapes an artistic practice and cultivates a love of art for audience and participants. Jorge is a choreographer with a PhD, an athlete's mind and a dancer's body. Jorge's work is renowned for the merging of athleticism and excitement of sports with the compelling visuals of an art installation. So, hello, Jorge.
Good morning, Martina.
Good morning. So, Jorge, we'll start with our first question. We're beginning each interview with the same question to set the scene and as a way to address the purpose of this podcast, showing how everyone has a relationship with movement and experience of dance. Jorge, what is your earliest or most vivid memory of dance?
I was starting to study sports science. Actually, it was the second year, and we had dance as a subject because as a physical education teachers, we need to know a little bit about that. And we did a little bit of ballet, a little bit of folklore, Spanish folklore. We did a little bit of contemporary, and I really liked. So at that time, I was going out with a girl who was a flamenco dancer. And one evening I was telling her about my classes and she said, oh, that's cool. If you really like it, they open contemporary adult classes in my school for people who never done anything. Come and have a look. So there I went, and I remember very, very vividly sitting down, watching that class. And I remember smelling my wrist because I was trying a new perfume, a new cologne. That is still the one I use, which is Armani.
Oh.
And I remember these people dancing to the soundtrack of Reservoir Dogs, the Tarantino's film.
Wow, okay.
And I don't know if it was God or a fairy or something, but the light came through the window and said, Jorge, you really need to do that.
Wow.
It was super clear. I was 22 years old at that time.
Wow, 23. Okay.
22.
22, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I started contemporary dance at around that age too.
Yeah, no, it was super, super clear. And it's so clear at the moment that sometimes when I still smell my own perfume, that memory triggers. And I don't know, it comes back again a little bit, that love, passion, and completely being in awe about those people's movement in this weird music. It was fantastic.
How beautiful. Like a calling from God or a calling from
like
somewhere,
that.
From the...
Yeah. I could have been a nun, but I decided to be a dancer.
All right, so Jorge, you've studied contemporary dance at the Royal Conservatory of Madrid, and you have a degree in sports science. There's an obvious link of the body connecting both dance and sports science. Did you study these simultaneously? And I'd like to dig a little deeper into this and ask you to go back to the moment you began to make this connection between essentially art and science, and how this connection has nurtured your own practice.
After watching that class, I was so in awe that I decided to go a tiny bit deeper. So I just went to the Conservatoire of Madrid with me not doing dance at all before. And I knocked on the door and I said, I really want to do that. And they said, well, we just did the auditions. We don't have a place for you. Like, yeah, but I really want to do it. So they allowed me to go in, and I was studying sports science at the same time. I started the first year just attending the classes, and the next year I auditioned for the conservatoire and I got a place there. So it was very parallel, my studies in sports science and my dance training. In the mornings, I used to go to sports science. I did swimming, hockey, judo, fencing, and all the theory behind of physiology, the anatomy. We went to see corpse as well and open them up just to see how the muscles work. And then in the afternoon, in the middle of the day, I went into the underground, eating my Tupperware, my food, in order to start dance classes at 2:00 in the afternoon. And the connection was immediate and was very, very progressive, because in the afternoons, I was all the time applying what I learned in the morning. Exactly. And what it was most beautiful for me, it's the next day in the morning, I was understanding what I had experienced in the afternoon, the day before in the conservatoire.
Wow.
So it was a very beautiful interweaving journey in between
Yeah,
art, science, and so yeah, I couldn't disconnect both of them.
it's beautiful. So they were feeding into each other. And
Completely. I really like sports science as a studies, but since I started dancing, I enjoyed 3 times more because I was applying in my head everything that I was learning in the morning. I was not just as dry as the blood comes through here and goes there,
exactly.
or this muscle group working that way. I could still apply it immediately in my head, so it was fantastic.
Great. And it's also great that the conservatoire offered the course in the afternoon and the what was it, the university,
The sports
and
science,
the sports science course was in the morning. That's, I
totally
mean,
by chance, totally by chance.
wow. That's
Because the conservatoire was so small as a building that they had the people who were doing ballet and Spanish folklore, flamenco and Spanish dance in the mornings, and the contemporary, because it was the last one,
is in
it
the
was in the
afternoon.
afternoon. So it
That's
was
amazing.
really
Okay.
lucky.
Hmm. Would you like to tell us what your PhD was all about?
Poof, we have another 3 hours. No, it's all related because I started dancing late for
Mhm.
normal standards. I was 22. I was never complimented on how good my technique was, or
Mhm.
I used to go to parties and like, can you do the split? Like, no, I can't. No, so I was never complimented my technique. I was never complimented my flexibility. But little by little, in the second, third year, I started making more connections between the pedagogy and the sports psychologist with the dance. So I started being very complimented by teachers and peers and choreographers from outside the conservatory in my presence. And I didn't know what they meant, but it was from a moment that no one gave a crap about me in classes. The teachers never pay attention to me. It was a very clear shift that I started saying, oh, this is good. Oh, try this. Oh, this is really nice. Oh, this is not as good. So somehow I became present.
Yeah.
So for many years, I started thinking, okay, what is that thing that it seems that I have? And how can I train that? Because the things that I don't have are
Yeah.
endless: technique, flexibility, rhythmicality. People sometimes need to scream at me 5, 6, 7, 8 for me to start dancing.
Okay.
So how could I train that thing that I suppose I already have, but I don't know what it is yet? So I spent 10 years and 3 relationships to figure out a way to learn that. And that's the PhD. So
Interesting.
I study what are the states of mind associated, or states of consciousness associated to that peak performance presence, and how you can train it. It is not the solution. It is not the magical wonderland that come Jorge, touch you with a wand and you have the perfect training in presence. No, it's a training on
Yeah.
that. And it's very thorough. It's very physical. So the body as a gateway for consciousness. And it became now a methodology that I do it in workshops, and I also carry out an online training for people to be able to learn this methodology and be able to apply to their classes, their performances, or their lives if they want. And that's basically what my PhD is. We are
Wow.
publishing the book.
Oh,
We just handed in the manuscript last week to Routledge,
okay.
and it's being published in autumn.
Amazing. Could you tell us the name of the book?
Yes, I love it. It's called Designing Presence,
Designing Presence.
entering, designing presence,
Mm-hmm.
entering towards vivencia. Towards vivencia is the name of my PhD because I couldn't find a word in English that explained how to experience the experience that you're having in the present moment consciously and willingly in order to have a transformation that has been chosen previously. All that is vivencia.
Vivencia, the beautiful word. Cool. All right. So, I'm very interested to hear a little bit more about the altered state of consciousness. As a dancer, I've had a taste of your practice and was particularly struck by how a few sessions with you taught me very important lessons that I was able to apply outside my identity as a dancer also. One very personal lesson I learned through one of your simple exercises was how to let thoughts and ideas manifest in your subconscious and not to try to hang on to them or to keep them in the forefront of your mind. And this allows a person, in my opinion, to trust their body and mind more, to understand which information is worth processing and which isn't. This also helps to confront or get rid of the fear of the unknown. Out of the 5 sessions I had with you, I learned a lesson on fear, patience, and trust. Now, psychology or the workings of the mind are a huge key factor to the creative process. Most of the time, the hardest and the most delicate task of the choreographer is the way information is communicated to the dancers, who ultimately will be the ones performing the work. Jorge, is an altered state of consciousness equivalent to a state of flow? Also, please can you outline the reasons behind your search for the right conditions to replicate the altered state of consciousness, and how this helps to nurture artistic practice and a love for art for participants?
Well, Martina, I'm very humble. I didn't know that you get that from my classes. I'm very humble now. Thank you for saying it. Yes, I'll try to explain. As performers, we believe that we are superhuman somehow. I don't know if it happens to you, but I encounter lots of performers like, no, but we can do that because we train dance. So we have very good musicality because we do that. Or we go in the streets like, no, we are faster than other people because we do that. So it is true that we develop different. We are not superhumans, but it's true that we are out of the ordinary because our training is out of the ordinary. So we train everyday musicality, the use of the space. We train how to be inclusive and tolerant by listening to other people. We learn how to be flexible in our minds because we know that there is no one truth. So we are not fundamentalists. So our training, we want it or not, it is not only it is not only about the physical body, about how to jump better or run faster, like athletes somehow does. This is very controversial because I'm sure that through the athletes training, they also get lots of collateral and byproduct skills. But dance normally, traditionally, has been based, the learning very, very similar to sports in skill acquisition. How to be better with music, how to be better with jumps, etc., etc., etc. But we have been always developing other skills. Now, the situation is that this learning has been really, really slow because it has been kind of like feeding and creeping into our everyday practice without being conscious about it. So my research and my interest was like, what about if we start making more emphasis on those skills as well, not instead of, but as well consciously. And I realized that we can accelerate that learning. And as you said, have implications in our everyday life, it's outside of the studio. And that make us even more us. So actually somehow, I think that one of the most amazing powers of dance is that allow us directly to work on our consciousness, on our nervous system. So very, very simple. We as human beings, we have two ordinary states of consciousness: is fight or flight when you are in stress, or a mammoth or a rhino is going to attack you. You either fight it or just bugger off. And the other end of the spectrum is the heal and digest. When you feel safe, you are allowed to, your body, it's able to absorb the nutrients and heal the little micro damages that you get through the day. So these are the ordinary states of mind. One that you are super active, stressed, and ready to fight, and the other one that you're super calm and relaxed. So when you combine those two, you get what it's called an altered state of consciousness or non-ordinary states of consciousness, which is that moment in which we feel super ready, but at the same time you feel calm and everything goes almost like in a slow motion, but then at the same time you're ready to attack. And this is somehow what we call flow. However, flow, it's only one of those possible altered states of consciousness or non-ordinary states of consciousness. When I try to work, it's a tiny bit more a bigger range of altered states of consciousness. So the one that I'm working particularly, flow, it's a part of it, but it's not the whole of it. Because normally flow is automatic. So if you make another thought in between, you destroy that flow. And this is the definition of, and I know how to say it, setchik me high.
What is that?
Set Me High is the
Oh,
name. Chick Set Me High. Sorry, I said it wrong. Chick Set Me High
Set Me High.
is
Okay.
the psychologist behind the word flow. He coined it
Oh,
in the 1960s.
oh, of
And
course.
Mihalis, which is impossible. I would like that for the listeners, you write it somewhere, his name, because it's completely impossible to pronounce. But I
Yes.
learned it through my PhD. Chick Set Me High.
I remember I did an assignment on flow. That's why I'm particularly interested in it. And I completely forgot the name of the
Yes,
psychologist.
but it's impossible to say it.
Yes, it's
uh,
true.
you can write it there
Interesting.
somewhere.
But
So what I'm interested is in a wider range of non-ordinary states of consciousness, because flow is a very, very small one when things are automatic. But as dancers, we need to make decisions in real time. It is not like gymnastics or
yeah,
other sports in which you know a routine and you need to repeat the routine and not allowing any other thought come through. We need to make decisions, and many choreographers more and more are using the cue receiver. So it's
curiosity there. True. Hmm.
lots of inputs and music and things go bad on performance. So the ordinary states of mind that I'm proposing, it's of total present. Sometimes it is not joy, it is not nice. Sometimes you feel that what I'm doing is crap, but instead of coming out of the performative state of mind, you are acknowledging that it's been crap.
Exactly. And
And that's what I'm proposing.
very beautiful. I've never heard flow, not flow, but I've never heard this alter. It's really beautiful the way you explained it. Like this spectrum of states of consciousness that we can pass through and acknowledge where we are. That's very beautiful.
Which is somehow a little bit what we are trying always to say, to be present,
Yes.
to be solid, to be grounded, to hold the space. You know, that sometimes this is a difficult time, but sometimes you are having a breakup with someone that you love, or
Mm.
someone it's going, or you're having a difficulty with a colleague or with your partner, and there is a discussion how to remain present in that moment. I
Hmm.
don't think I would call it flow because it's
No,
not very
no,
nice.
no, no, no. I agree.
But I would call, but somehow you're flowing through the
Hmm.
situation. So yes, flow, it's a little part of a wider
Of that.
spectrum.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you. So, apart from the altered state of consciousness, what are the most important elements of the creative process to you, and how do you nurture these elements?
Um, I was talking to Julian Hamilton not long
Hmm.
ago. He was my guest in my own podcast a few weeks ago. And it's quite interesting because I was talking also with Paolo and many other choreographers, and we all talk about the same in very different words. But Julian particularly had a beautiful word for this, which is humanness. So
Yes.
humanness, the more you can see a performer, their whole humanity, what it means to be human, which for me is that kindness, compassion, anger, doubt, fear, and you can see that in a raw, not raw. I don't want dancers to expose themselves and be completely naked, spiritually, emotionally, not physically in front of the audience. But the more we train those aspects alongside of how high your leg goes or how
Yeah.
straight your foot is, for me that's very important part of the creative process. A little bit what you were saying, no, that acknowledge those fears and let go of those thoughts, but being aware that you're letting them go. So it's developed what it makes us humans, that a state of consciousness. Probably this is arguable,
Arguable.
arguable, but what it makes us humans is that possibility of choice, that consciousness of being aware of what's happening around us. So the more we develop that, I believe the better performers will be, because, and this is my latest discovery, that's something that helped me a lot to articulate it when I was working with eszfinMalta.
Hmm.
I don't call dancers anymore dancers, I call them explorers.
Explorers.
So through the creative process, for me, they explore what it means to be human in those scenarios that I created, where fear, doubts, frustration, clarity, self-esteem, all those love, uh, kindness, compassion, all those things are part of that creative process for them to explore. those things. I don't want them to be there all the time because it could be dangerous if you are all the time in a frustrating place. If my work is not very narrative, but if at some point you need to be a prostitute or a murderer in a performance, to be there in that state of mind is a bit dangerous because it starts creeping into your everyday life. So I allow them, or I help them with my tools to go and explore those intricate, complicated states of consciousness, take something from it, and bring it back.
Bring it back, exactly. With a little
Show it
safety
to
net.
the audience. Exactly. And by showing it to the audience, it's almost like bringing a souvenir from deep, deep Africa. It's like, I've been there. I've been risking my life for you to be able to see this.
Cool. Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. I relate to this a lot because as a dancer, I was not a technician. I was not known for my technique, let's say. But I believe that what I brought to my I don't know, to choreographers, to the process, to my friends and my colleagues, was humanness, and that's very beautiful. Okay.
And when you see another human, you cannot help but being moved. How many times happened to you with a dear friend that start laughing like hell, and then you start laughing as well?
Yeah.
Or someone is crying, I stop crying because I will cry myself.
Yeah.
So when we experience that humanness of someone else, it also connects to our own humanity. So it's contagious. So I believe dance has the power and should lead the way to create the next society, the next stage of human evolution, because by touching how human we are, we allow other people to get in touch with their humanity as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jorge. I'd like you to go into a little detail about the connections you see between neuroscience and dance, anthropology and dance, and phenomenology and dance, pinpointing how or why each can nurture the art form or practice of dance. Out of the three, I am most interested in the phenomenological connection that you see to dance, as this is the most vague for me, the vaguest, as this is the vaguest for me.
Yes, those are three pillars, very, very fundamental pillars of knowledge. One is science, one is history, anthropology, that goes to who we are, and the other one is philosophy. Neuroscience is very clear because we work with our body, and the physical body, it's constructed or commanded by a nervous system, which is nothing more than a series of specialized cells. By working very in detail by knowing how the mechanisms of those systems, sorry, that's the word I was looking for, knowing those systems, the nervous system works, it will not only allow us to accelerate learning in the studio of steps of skill acquisition, but it always will allow us to go very clearly to a specific goal. Once again, we do want to work in a particular piece of work on kindness, in compassion, in frustration, etc., etc. So knowing how the physiological body works, it will allow us to work on those other aspects that at the moment I'm not going to get into the discussion. Physical, material, spiritual, it's all the same, but just for the sake of the discussion, we focus on the materiality of it, the mechanics of it. It's nervous impulse going from one to the other.
Nice.
Exactly. Anthropology, it's because I don't know if you know the 2 pounds coin, in the English 2 pounds coin.
Yes.
Most of them, in the verge of it is written standing on the shoulders of giants.
Oh, I didn't know.
It's fantastic. And it means somehow that we are very little people, that we generate very little knowledge, but by standing on the shoulders of giants, we can see a tiny bit farther each time. So I wanted to go into anthropology just to see how we have been developed as a species, as human beings, for me to be able to look a tiny bit farther and to look at how we've been developing, how dance contribute to that human development. And phenomenology is the most complex of all, but it kind of like explains how we perceive the world, and whether the world, and this is complicated, I didn't get my head around it yet, but whether the world exists if we wouldn't perceive it, or how it exists because how we perceive it. So I'm not going to get too much into phenomenology, but getting into that idea of altered states of consciousness, phenomenological theories talk about a natural attitude and a phenomenological attitude. In a normal attitude is that one that you are right now, like you are and I were talking, we might have a coffee, you walk in the street. It is not autopilot, but it's normal, it's natural, it's your everyday life. There is another way of perceiving the world that most of us has experienced. It happens to me when I'm waiting for the bus, or when I am in nature, calm. So when I am not occupied with something that takes my attention, and somehow, for a second, it's like, and I remove myself from what is experiencing, and I see myself in that experience, that everything is happening, almost feels like a film. Like you're watching reality. Do you know what I mean? I can see you nodding.
Yes.
So in my understanding of phenomenology, this is the phenomenological reaction. It's a situation in which you are still part of the world never stops, but somehow you are experiencing the phenomena. That's why it's called phenomenological reduction. You are experiencing the phenomena as it is, without inputting anything from your everyday experience of it. And that is what it led me to the idea of how you can do that on performance, and constantly being experienced what is happening in real time, almost as removed from the situation, but at the same time being the one that is carrying the action. So somehow I took phenomenology, and I kind of like the whole PhD, neuroscience, anthropology, and phenomenology, got reduced after 10 years into two words, which is active surrendering. It is the idea that you surrender to what's happening, so you allow it to happen, but at the same time, you are actively making it happen. And what a beautiful thing when you encounter, there is two ways to encounter a difficult situation that you're going to be harmed, for example, or you're going to be taken advantage of. You can say like, I don't care, this is my body, do whatever you want. Or you can say, I deeply love you. I willingly and consciously give myself to this situation, whatever it is. And that's what I call active surrendering.
Wow. Okay. Thank you again for explaining it. I don't know. It was just, I understand you completely, and I have no words. Great.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Thanks. Cool. So, last question, Jorge. I would like to hear more about how, through your works as a choreographer, you hope to connect with audiences and nurture that relationship. We've already talked about empathy. It has come up in our conversation. I'd like to focus maybe on how the concept of virtuosity forms a part of this.
Yes. Skill acquisition is very, very important. We cannot get into those non-ordinary states of consciousness unless if we are worried about something very fundamental as the skills. For example, if many marathon runners report that they get into those altered states of consciousness after being running for a while. I don't know if you are a long distance runner. I was for a while, but now if you ask me to run for half an hour, probably I die before I get into that altered states of consciousness. Exactly. So skills are really important. I believe that I have a strong presence on stage. If you ask me to do the Swan Lake right now, probably I look like crap because I'm worried about
The way you look.
my plie de mi plie, because I don't know how to do that. So virtuosity is very, very important for me. It's the dancers able to physicalize or to push their physicality to the limits is very important, because it is the very, very first step in my methodology. So we have in the methodology of training a stage presence of how to enter into that state of mind, how to stay, how to exit. In order to enter, the very first thing is to have the skills. The second thing is to be acquaintance, to be comfortable with the environment. If you feel threatened, if you don't feel safe, you cannot get into that. And the third one is my favorite, that we leave it for another podcast, which is called the mystification of the art of performance.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll add that for later. But virtuosity and skill acquisition is very important because, and I wanted to say this, I don't know if you're familiar with the stages of learning.
No.
In a very basic in a very basic explanation, you have the first step is unknown and competence. You don't know that you don't know.
You don't know that you don't know. Nice.
So I don't know that I don't know how to do, I don't know. Before I think about it, I never think about, I don't know how to ski because, so I am an unknown incompetence. I don't know how bad I am at skiing because I've never done skiing. The next stage is known incompetence. You start trying a skill or an activity and you realize how bad you are at that. So you get the knowledge that you are completely incompetent of that. The next stage is known competent. It means that there are moments that you realize, oh, now I can do this. Oh, I didn't know that, but I can do that now. That's the third stage. And the fourth one, which is very beautiful, is you are unknown competent. You know how to do things that you don't even have to think about it because they are completely integrated in yourself. As dancers, you see lots of people that has a beautiful way of moving in the streets and they are unknown competent of that because it's so integrated. So for me, virtuosity is that if you work very, very hard in order to acquire a certain physicality and you don't have to think anymore about it because it's fully integrated, it allows me as choreographer, as a guide, to go farther into those altered states of consciousness because the first stage is already covered. So when I work with people like ÄżfinMalta dancers or the dancers from Acosta Danza, they're not dancers, all these people, they're beasts. They're like extra humans. They can do things that are incredible. Therefore, I don't need to worry about that. We can go beyond that and use it, but not concentrated on that. Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. So are you saying that the audience picks up on this superhuman? I'm going to relate virtuosity to a bit of the superhuman versatility that dancers have. So do you think that audience relate to this and feel like they are, I don't know, a part of it, or they are in awe of what they are doing on the stage?
This is very personal. So
Yeah.
once again, I'm not trying to say that this is the truth, but
No.
I believe that this virtuosity can be seen in two different ways. The first one is in awe. You are amazed about the things that they can do.
Yeah.
Wow, the flexibility, the speed, the agility, it's nearly circus. And then you stay in that incredible display of skills that is like, wow, I really want to watch more because I didn't even know that was possible. That for me, it's a part of it that I'm not that interested. I think it's very necessary and I love to work with people who are doing that. But that allows me to go to the next level, that when we go with those skills to go into the humanity, the humanness of that performer, I want to think, and this is something I'm going to clarify in a second, that if the performer is using those skills to access a state of consciousness that not everyone is able to access because not everyone is able to do that. Yeah. Once again, a runner that is able to run for 4, 5, 6 hours ultra marathons, not everyone is able to do that. So that person will enter certain states of consciousness that not everyone will be able to. By people watching, observing, experiencing in real time what that person is going, hopefully, and I'm going to highlight really strongly, hopefully, will somehow relate and experience a little bit of what that person experienced. I wanted to highlight hopefully, because I always believed that as a choreographer, as a performer, I didn't have the capability to infuse that experience on the audience. If the audience are not ready, they don't have the background, they are having a bad day, I don't know how 3,000 people are gonna observe and experience the same performance. So as a choreographer, I do not focus on what the audience might experience because that's always unknown. I focus on something that I can control, that is what is the performer experience, always hoping, because for me it's a service, that by the performer experiencing that, certain members of the audience will be able to experience that as well.
All right.
But it's beyond my control because me personally, in a dance world, if I had a fight with my girlfriend or I didn't sleep well, or I'm hungry, or I really need to go to the toilet, I will not experience that performance in its fullness.
That's true.
So I focus on the performer experience, hoping that the audience will empathize somehow.
Yeah, great. Okay, Jorge, thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you for these thought-provoking questions. I like it.
You're welcome. I try to approach them, as from my own experience, and I did the least research possible as well, so that what I'm asking you is quite honest. So, it's very honest.
I felt it. I felt that it came from a genuine place. Thank you for that.
All right. So thank you very much, and wishing you the best. And we hope to see you in Malta some point very soon.
Me too. I love the island and the people in the island and the work of the island. Yeah, I think I'm gonna move there.
Great. You're very, very welcome.
Thank you, Martina.
Thank you.